Thank you. So we are live now. Uh, can anyone please tell me, am I audible properly?
Yes, ma'am, it is audible.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Uh, Joly sir, are you there?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Sir, please. Yes, you are audible. Will you please on your
Yeah,
video?
I'm trying to share my screen.
Sir, here is a brief introduction. Then you can share the
Yeah,
screen
okay,
that.
let me check it out. Whether is it possible?
चल मैं सुनती हूँ इसको बंद कर दूँ कि देखो
Please mute
Um,
yourselves, dear. I am muting you, all of you, right now. Yeah, yeah, the screen is visible, sir. Sir, so can
okay,
we
I'm
start?
ready. I'm ready.
Okay. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I extend a warm welcome to all of you attending the sixth public lecture in 2024, organized by the Cultural Studies Research Forum. Our focus today centers around the intriguing topic constructing cultural identity through performance. And this lecture marks the first installment of a two-part series dedicated to performance studies. Before we delve into the heart of our discussion, allow me to introduce our organization, CSRF. Launched on January 1st, 2022, CSRF is a student driven non-profit committed to fostering free public lectures and thought provoking discussion across various cultural studies research areas. Our mission is to empower students by exposing them to new research domains, literary trends, and cutting edge theoretical concepts. Our engaging talks aim to spark lively conversation and broaden our understanding of diverse culture and practices. Now, without further delay, let us welcome our esteemed resource person, Dr. Joly Puthussery. As the head and associate professor at the University of Hyderabad's Center for Folk Culture Studies, Dr. Puthussery brings a wealth of experience and expertise to our today's topic. His background in theater arts, coupled with a PhD in theater studies, has shaped his multifaceted interest, including performance studies, folk theater in India, public performance, discourse, and religion and theatrical practices. Over the span of 27 years, he has made significant contribution to both research and teaching at the university level. Notably, he received prestigious awards such as Fulbright Fellowship in Theatre Education at Illinois State University, USA, and a Junior Research Fellowship from the Department of Culture, HRD Ministry, Government of India, and many more. His teaching engagements have spanned institutions like University of Hyderabad, University of Calicut, NIPT, and NALSA. Beyond academia, Dr. Puthussery's career extends into fascinating realms. He has served as a resource person for various universities and autonomous organizations, including CCRT, NCERT, and ACRT. Additionally, he has lent his expertise to Hollywood and UK based film productions. As a director, he has helmed more than 16 major plays and contributed to over 60 theater productions. His scholarly work graces the pages of journals such as Comparative Drama, Early Drama Music Review, Southern Folklorist, etc. Furthermore, Dr. Puthussery actively coordinates national theatre and cultural festivals, seminars, and forums. His profound understanding of performance, folklore, and cultural practices promises an engaging and insightful exploration of cultural identity through performance. Without further delay, let us eagerly await Dr. Joly Puthussery's enlightening insights. The stage is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Koal. Hope I'm audible. Sorry that it took a little time for me to get into this new Zoom. After a long time, I'm using Zoom, so it was like,
No problem, sir.
yeah, it is like giving me some fun. Okay, anyway, thank you so much for giving me such a chance in this Wallet or Institute's program. And because of Professor Biju, uh, I'm stepping in this particular initial talk. Otherwise, Biju should have been talking to you in much more profound way. I thank Biju. And I thank my mentor, Professor Sudhakar Reddy, for many of his ideas and thoughts I've been using, and also Gopika for helping me to somehow put this slides. Thank you, Coil, for facilitating. Let's get in. It's a small, it's a talk with, you know, I'll be hanging on to um, bit of Shasnerian performance theory, bit of folklore, a little bit of theater, coming into some kind of a Christian performance tradition, etc., etc. And that's what that's the way I will be dealing with this particular thing. So it's like it's a talk with um, introducing you to different sets of concepts. So I will start with a bit of a reading initially, then warm up and get back to you. Kindly let me know when should I stop it also, so that we'll have an interaction. Okay, performance theory is more of an approach rather than a theory. So it's very funny to say performance theory. Then I'm saying it's an approach. This is the conscious um, hybridity which is there, always there in the performance, because it is a study of an artistic action, an event involving most often performer, art form, audience, and setting of a given cultural milieu. So this approach has given altogether a new scope and definition to folklore studies. Folklore is considered to be something of the past, something of the redundant, something which needs to be collected, conserved, and preserved and disseminated for the sake of thinking that the past had a lot of wisdom. That was once upon a time. That's what the major epistemological idea about folklore, but that has changed because the performance approach, the performance studies has, uh, you know, uh, given a particular interest and impetus to the idea of folklore. In the words of Raymond Wilson, folklore as the study of experiences, meanings, and values of residual cultures remained by and large the broad area of the study of the paper. But this premise always threatened the very existence of the folklore as a discipline in the academic circle, because once this tradition of the residue cultures and its trails gets into an emergent cultural traits and an emergent cultural scenario, some dies out, some survives, some undergoes a drastic change. And in that way, if you stick on to such an old concept of folklore, sex folklore becomes, of course, redundant. Therefore, to create a social relevance and the utilitarian basis, and performance studies strived hard and gave almost a new life to the discipline. So, with the coming of the young Turks like Bowman, Delance, Scherzer, then all the ethnography of speaking guys, they brought in the idea of performance centric approach, and that becomes a particular kind of a thing, because these performances were some way or the other way we were connecting with the ethnic identities, because from the 1970s in the United States of America, the political parties were interested, like in our Kerala, also the same thing happens. The political parties were very much interested in the ethnic communities or minorities or marginalized or whatever it is. And ethnicity and identity got attention from the political parties, from the political scenario, as well as the scholars. And the political scholars, political leaders, with the advice of the scholars in the field of culture, encouraged and sponsored governmental bodies and philanthropic institutions to run certain programs to study this ethnic communities and their cultural traits, and the collection and the preservation of that data and the dissemination of the same data with vigor, an idea for the community that their identity is a factor to be noted, and their identity is a factor to be addressed, and that generated the idea of cultural identities or construction of identity of the community through the conservation of certain collected materials, you quote and unquote, call it as something which is the reminiscence of culture. And interestingly, the coming of the new video equipment, audio equipment, and the capturing, cultural capturing materials, etc., archiving possibilities, it was a pretty bigger boost for the then scholars to collect, conserve, preserve, and disseminate the wide, varied knowledge base of this particular kinds of commodities. And interestingly, the performance also helped. Performance-centric approach also, given a kind of thing. So a culture, according to the performance theoreticians, or a group of individuals who asserted on their own sense of groupness through their own cultural manifestations. Any community has their own manifestations. And the community, in the process, assertion, use a kind of an assertion and self-education, worthy of constructing this identity. So, in order to the collecting of this particular process, the collecting of this dynamic folklore in practice, help the performance theoreticians, or the people who were, trying to understand, or trying to build in a kind of a theory building exercise through studying performance, was an interesting thing for them. So in a way, the sense of groupness produced by the communities through a performance act to conform with other cultures dramatized the usefulness of analyzing folklore in its political, social, cultural context. So the context become matters in each and every context, in each and different settings, in each and different regional specialities, in each and every vernacular cosmologies. These communities constructed, retained, or reproduced a sets of performances. And these performances became an observable paradigm with its dynamism for the theoreticians to study. So this was very much helpful. Unlike unlike they were in the clutches of the mentalistic structuralism, where the structure was important, language was important, human beings and communities were considered to be making always meaningful utterances, symbolic in nature. So from there to the study started looking at a dynamic phenomenon and trying to understand the process rather than the meaning of utterances, which has been interpreted as a simple text. You got my point. Earlier days, that's why in the earlier days, based on this mentalistic approach with a tinge of structuralism in mind, folklorists were always looking at narratives, which has story and discourse. And the story has some kind of content, and the contents always had some kind of cultural connection, and that cultural connection retained the basic story in its deep structural level. At the discourse level, they had a different sets of styles of expressions. So the actualization of that story through discourse and expressions made them to use certain kind of cultural idioms or vernacular idioms and conventions. And interestingly, they have used certain styles of productions, conventions of productions, codes of productions, strategies of productions, which is very much native in understanding, which is very much vernacular in sharing. So through that, they have constructed, be it as a textual media, be it as a performance media, be it as a visual media, whatever it is, they have constructed certain genres of performances with conventional centricness and exposed through the media. So that's what we're doing. So the performance theorists, performance-oriented folklorists, they were not only simply bothered about the genre-based analytical categories. Instead, they argued for the ethnic genres, which can be seen, which cannot be seen in isolation or compartmentalized as it would be effective. The very meaning and the function of the genre itself was very much, very much imbibed or very much set in the setting, context, and things. So here, the text always was not a separate, isolated identity. Says texts were in its own context. And that context were part of the larger cultural specific systems. And in that context, through a process, through a dynamism, they started, a kind of an expressive way of communication started coming. So there, in total, one can say each, and it also made performance theory into a bigger trouble, because each and every performance has an art of communication. Each and every performance word, nothing but certain verbal, expressive action found in action, whatever it is. So the performance study was much more alive, much more dynamic, and much more an approach. That's what I'm trying to say. Each and every performance were approached with some kind of ideas. So that's what performance studies have given. That is, it was just the beginning. It was just the takeoff from the ideas of ethnography of speaking, etc., etc., etc. So from the Delines and Gumpres and all, it was taken. So from there, we just go into the next slide. So here comes the idea of performance, how performance can be studied. But when you look at when you look at performance as a concept, an observable analytical phenomena to be studied, one cannot simply forget about Richard Schiffner's contribution and his own trials in making performance, uh, performance studies is on me. So he is the one who postulated the idea of. So performance is is any behavior that is twice behaved or restored. For him, performances are human actions or events that have been constructed through a multi-stage process. They have been rehearsed and prepared and are then framed, presented, highlighted, or displayed in a heightened fashion. Any given performance has a history. It is a result of a process of learning and a transmission that have preceded by many or that have proceeded with a kind of rehearsals. So it's a performance is the second or third or the fourth presentation of a practiced act, twice behaved behavior. Chesner easily simply take it up it as we are all being, but when we start doing, we are getting into the action. So, a social reality constructed by human action, doings, behaviors, and events that started generating human expressions. Be it a religious act, a political act, physical act, sexual act, or whatever it is that doings construct. But when the doings becomes practiced, framed, it becomes part of a showings. And when it got professionalized, when it got kind of a particular text to be showed for the constructed audience, for the selected audience, for the paid audience, for the gathered audience, it becomes a showing doing business by the set of actors and directors. So it is because of Shakespearean, Shakespearean parochiality towards the theater that he studied, which makes him, which makes him to locate that particular thing. So performance studies never, it had a larger amount of epistemology. So when you look at that epistemology, you can see that, Irving Goffman's idea of presentation of self, then performatives by J. Austin, basing on that. The ethnography of speaking is a continuum of the linguistic studies and the Delaime's performances-centered approach, where Bowman and Scherz are trying to do this the synchronic study of certain event where story, event, story, context, storytelling, context, and events started getting analyzed. You can see an anthropologist like Victor Turner coming in, where he is trying to fix or bring in the sacred ritualistic performances to its efficacy in the ritual to theater. Then Judith Butler and performative acts of gender coming in. More than that, you have a political sets of performance studies based on the Kishenberg Gimlet. There are quite a lot of studies. You can really see there are the groups of people belongs to anthropology, belongs to folklore studies, belongs to the ritual studies, belongs to the religious studies, belongs to the literary studies. All these people, linguistics, especially psychology and linguistics, started bringing in, developing a larger amount of concepts regarding the performance. So in anthropology of performance, you can easily see two concepts. One is performing culture and other is cultural performance. Interestingly, both sound similar, but the difference is significant. Richard Schesner, a performance studies scholar whose work frequently overlaps with anthropology, provides a useful distinction between these terms. He is saying by distinguishing between analyzing something that is performance, versus analyzing something that has a performance. So he divide performance, which is a performance, and something as a performance. A cultural performance is a performance. When you go to a concert, when you go to a kacheri, when you go to a theatrical production, when you go to a particular football match, then you are going there and you are destined to see a performance which is framed, which can be called is performance. So that is performance is nothing but a cultural performance. But you both are going, you and your girlfriend is going to see that performance. You and your girlfriend or a boyfriend is going, and when in the concert, that is your day, the first date, and you both perform certain kind of cultural actions along with the, or you enjoy, you perform the closeness. That behavioral patterns can be considered as a performance. It is as a performance. So this is such a thing can be studied as a performance. That as a performance is constructed through your own culturally trained, culturally imbibed, culturally absorbed, culturally accumulated sets of behavior. That's what you're doing. So in a broader sense, you can say performing culture, which is very much related to your life, your everyday realities, or etc., etc., etc. Or you can say that cultural performance is a very designated, distinctive performance. So that's what is the major division is to be talked about. So,
Sir,
well,
sorry to interrupt. Actually,
yeah.
people are asking, is there any PPT, whatever you are just like, I mean, telling us? Because we can see the screen, but not the PPT.
Oh, what happened?
Yeah,
Yeah, I have sent the PPT to you now. Why don't you share it?
yeah. So, no, sir, actually, you were sharing the screen, that's why. Yeah,
Oh, I
I
should.
am doing that.
Okay.
I'm
No, no,
doing
I
it.
should stop sharing. Then I will not be able to see. I don't know. Yeah, I will not be able to maneuver. Yeah, is it not able to see or what?
Actually, we are able to see your screen. Okay. You have to just click on that PPT, I think. I mean, PPT file, and then it will be open
Is it
and we
okay?
can see it.
1 second. Is it
Yes, sir.
now? Is it possible?
Sir, you
Is it
have to
seen?
do it. No, sir. No.
Okay, once I'll stop sharing and once again I'll share.
Yes, sir, please.
Sorry for the trouble.
No, sir, it's okay. Actually, we were listening to you now. That's why.
Oh, okay. Is it okay now?
Let me check. Yes, sir.
Is it
We
okay?
can see the PPT. Yeah.
No, no, 1 minute. Let me. Is it changing? No. 1 minute. Is it changing? Okay,
Um.
it's changing,
Yes,
no?
yes,
It's now it's
yes, yes.
possible. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Thank you,
right.
sir.
Okay. You also let me know. Okay. 1 minute. Sorry. Okay, then we can rush in certain things. I'm so sorry. So what I was trying to say is there is a cultural performance and performing culture. Cultural performance is not the term which is made by me or Sheshna. That's made by Milton Singer. That I'll come back to. Before getting into that, I will try to inform you that there are certain kinds of concepts which which is a forerunner in this particular scenario. You always see drama, script, theater, and performance. You know, drama is the smallest and the most intensive unit. Drama is something, an intent. Drama is something, it's a literary text which has been written. So it's very, it's come from the word dran, to do, a text to do. So it is written with a dialogic fashion, which has been carried, which as a text which can be carried between places and time. Even if the people who perform the drama do not comprehend it, the drama remains preserved. So the drama can be broadly understand as and understand as a particular kind of a text, written as a literary genre. Script is all that it can be transmitted between the places and time. The script is the code of event, a text which has been interpreted and put it into some codes where one can rework worked on it. So a script by a director Trivandrum, Kaval and Narayan Panikar's one particular script with his own suggestions and work and ideas and music notes, etc., 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 can be transmitted between people. The transmitter must know that the script is able to be, so the teacher or the director or the one who takes it up must know or must have a willingness to rework or must have a willingness to reproduce the same script. So the drama, when it becomes the theater is nothing but an event. It's an enacted. A text has been enacted. It's from the theatron. Theatron is nothing but a seeing place. A theater where a set of playgoers come and see the play done by a set of players, might have been written by a playwright, might have been directed and interpreted by somebody. So theater is a concrete, present, and an immediate live thing. Theater mean to be manifestation of drama. So then what is performance? Performance is a very interesting word. Performance is the whole constellation of events that take place in and among the performers. In a performance event, a text gets actualized and a set of audience gets into see a set of performers playing. So this encompasses inclusive of many, many sets of actions. It has the preparation. It starts with the preparation of the text to be interpreted or played on, or it has the preparation of the audience to get ready to come and see the theater. And they come in, they see, they laugh, they react, the light man, they enjoy, they come out in the foyer, they drink, they have coffee, they have samosas, they go back, they again happily see. They after the show, they go in, and while the actors cool down, they congratulate them, they make them, it's even go on. So the term performance is a constellation of things which is in a first source, one can say it is nothing but presenting something pre-prepared before a set of audience. If it is a theater, if it is a music, if it is a dance, if it is something like it. But then an element of liveness is there. The presence of the performer is there. The presence of the audience is there. The performance as there as an event in action. This performance can also be called as a social behavior. Everyday life as a performance brought in by the Irving Kaufman suggests that behaviors of people are performative, and that performative behaviors constitute their identity. Performance can also become a kind of a metaphor. It can also reveal their status. It can also reveal the hidden meanings. It can also make the people, the others, to understand the other. So, how to understand the performance, the presence, the presentations, and the role, and the character, and the effect, and with the presence played by the person. That is what is the interesting part of the thing. So, in a performance situation, the relationship between the activities and audience and the people, space, time, product, activity, etc., everything reveals who they are, what is their psychological state, what kind of status they play, how, what, in what time, where, in what ways they make their presentations effective. So performance is that. So there is an effective performance to the performance word again makes into a bigger thing. That is performance as a success, performance as an achievement, performance of a car, performance of your own phone, performance of economy, performance of a capitalistic logic that, the capitalistic logic comes into if you perform otherwise, what will happen? So perform or else, that is what John McKinsey's book says. if you are not able to perform. That's what every time in all of our grading systems we are confronting with. Interestingly, there are also performances in a wider spectrum. You can say performance art, which is a body art, which talks about the liveliness, embodiment associated with the term, mostly considered as a very contemporary kind of a rendition of the artistic end. So there's also a deconstructive performance where a particular kind of an acting style has been used in Molière text, and that Molière text is being deconstructed by the set of players and converted the melodrama into a post a kind of a cloning which is apt to this post-truth world can be possible. So it is that way. Performance can have its own wider meaning of the term. So Schuster combined anthropology, ritual, theater, etc., and made it bigger. So I'm not. Oh. I'm not getting into it much more. I'll go into. As I said, according to Schuster, performance is an umbrella concept, unites several groups of performance, which has play, games, sports, theater, ritual. And he says in the axiom of performance, one end is a play, another end is the ritual. One end is a play because performance, play and ritual are seen as the opposite ends of the performance, but they are still similar. Play is intrinsically motivated. You don't know when it starts, when it ends. But ritual is extrinsically motivated. You know it has a structure, it has a pattern, it has a role, it has a step-by-step evolution. So the role of freedom, that is what is important. He says there is an interesting idea of role of freedom with which the actors confine. With the role of freedom, they play the role of freedom with this thing. If you see an actor who is playing in a theater, he first confronts the space. Then he knows that the lines he's been learned. Then he knows that the things which has been distributed in the stage. Then he knows that his own way of rendering. So he is trying to recollect, rework on the rehearsed. So it is like he's been repeating the already practiced behaviors to rework on his character. Nothing but he's been playing. He's been playing a role. He's been interacting. He's been interacting as a character. He's getting into the character. He is or she is going into a transportation of one's own self to the role, to the character, and get into a different kind of reality and slowly coming back to one's own self. So it's something like a kind of a transportation of the self is happening through mediated through a set of freedom, sets of play, and also a set of convention, a set of strategies, a set of ritualistic behavior, a rich set of reproductions, etc., etc. I'm not going. So one can see the performance such a umbrella term which can be seen in the everyday life, in the arts, in the sports, in the business, in the technology, in the sex, in the ritual, where be it sacred or secular. Because I'm trying to use two examples later, so that is why it may be sacred and secular, and in the play. So all this performance also has certain kinds of purpose. It is, you all know that many of these performances are destined for to entertain you. It also not only to entertain, it also create a beauty. It also constructs certain materiality. It also makes you happy. It also, by creating beauty, it will entertain. It also teach or pursue you. Some of the performance will transform you. Some of the performance will affect your ideological stance. Some of the performance will convert you. Some of the charismatic performances, whether you deal with the demon or divine or whatever it is, it can transform you. So many of the performances from the ritualistic side deal with the demon or deal with the divine. whatever it is. Many of the performances, as I said, a charismatic performance, it can heal you. It can make you heal. If you being in Kerala, you can really look at a Theyyam performance. What will happen to the devotee? The devotee gets transported. The devotee get completely immersed. The devotee goes and gets into the performer who is in trance and get the blessing and get oneself healed. Most often, the performances are consciously made to change or construct the identity. You are a devotee. You are belongs to a particular religious faction. You are belongs to a particular political idea. You have a procession to undertake. Processions are bigger, fluid performances to persuade, to pressurize, to make your propaganda visible. And you being in the front row of that particular performance, you are showing off your identity. You are showing off and being affiliated with that particular group of performers and constructing your own identity, a new identity attributed to you, maybe as a radical, maybe as a religious fanatic, maybe as someone else, maybe as a neutral man, maybe as a one who protests, etc., etc., etc. So all these performances giving us a chance to foster the community, especially the religious performance, especially the Theyyam performance. Suppose you look at the Theyyam performance. There, in a particular shrine, the ancestral deity is being annually performed, and Kerala people are always interested or always in a form of migration. They will come together from different parts of the country, from different parts of the Kerala, from different parts of the diasporic communities. They come together and they through a commemorative performance, through a ritualistic commemoration, they bring in their collective memory. They show off their allegiance to their own ancestral deity. And in that particular context, they re-invoke their contextual memory and narratives and hang on to their own cultural memories that makes them to come together. So the performances always try to, foster foster the community. That's what performance do. Okay, I'm skipping this thing. I don't want to get into culture and cultural. 1 minute, let me check the time. Okay, uh, cultural definition and all. I will directly go into. You all know that culture consists of patterns, be it explicit or implicit. It is having behavior acquired, transmitted by symbols, constituting the distinctive achievement of a human groups. Every community has a distinctive element of culture. This is including the embodiments, artifacts. The essential core of culture consists of traditional, that is historically derived and selected, or that is being transferred generationally, that is being there as believed. So it is like it's a tradition. Tradition is transferred. It has a time depth. It has a set of concept. It has a set of knowledge. It is a language of its own. It has its own norms. It has been transformed through a time depth and accepted and appropriated. That ideas are all that ideas have certain sets of attached values. So culture in one hand be considered as a product of action. In the other hand, it also construct, or it also condition, it also change the elements for a further action. So culture is something, something which is learned, which is transmitted, which is symbolic, which is dynamic and adaptive, which is integrated, which is also, uh, you know, uh, um, uh, which is also esoteric, and which is also a language of its own. So I'm not talking about what is esoteric. Esoteric is every time a group thinks of themselves and it thinks what the others also think the same. Exoteric is what they think externally and they think that they are also thinking the same. So it's from the insider's point of view and outsider's point of view. I'm not getting into it. I'll directly go into a culture. Culture can be referred to as difference between groups of people who do things differently and perceive the world differently. It's in each group, in each community. When it comes to the identity is two sides of a coin. One is similarity, another is difference. So similarity and difference in its simultaneity, the identity is built. So this is the cultural expressions gives and generates a certain identity where you can find out who we are and how we are seen by them and how we are showing them who we are. So it is something like that. You got my point. So the cultural differences exist. That is why we have a varied culture. And cultural differences can cause differences in the interactional behaviors, and it also generate misunderstanding in their interpretations. That is why many of the times the cultural differences generate some kinds of conflicts. And these conflicts are most often gets negotiated by legitimizing the differences through an identity construction. It's like we are not denying. We know that there are many peoples with the differences. We negotiate the differences. We accept the differences. We absorb the differences. We make our own borders. We make our own understandings, appropriations, etc., and negotiate it. That is where the cultural identity comes in, like the concept of the culture, which is as you know that it's been there for a long time. It's been there by defined by the symbolists, defined by the functionalists, defined by the cognitive analysis, behaviorists, defined by many people. Many of the times, culture which is varied and complex. At times it is context. The study of cultural identity has been approached from diverse lenses, whether theoretically, methodologically, ontologically. In one sense, cultural identity can be understood as the experience. Cultural identity is an experience. It can be understood through experience, through enactments, and through the negotiation of dynamic social identification by the group members within particular settings. This is what every performative events do. This is what every performance do in each and every context of its own. This is what they negotiate. They makes you to be part of an experience. They makes you to be see the enactment, and they makes you to that particular phenomena makes you to undertake certain kinds of doings and participations, and through your enactments you negotiate the social identifications of your group, the others, and the participants, etc. Here, interestingly, cultural identity also talks about the individual identifies identity. As an individual identifies or desires to accept the multiple groups, people tend to experience, enact, and negotiate not just one cultural identity that you are playing many roles, many status, many identities, but you negotiate, you be part of it. At times, many often, we play multiple cultural identities. That's what being human. Further, many of the time, this intersecting cultural identities with others can vary from context to context, like every performance. Performance varies from context to context, depending on the setting, depending on the themes or the issues or the concerns at the hand, depending on the people involved, depending on the audience, depending on the circumstances, depending on that. So the cultural identity performances becomes, or you can say in Milton Singerian terms, cultural performances becomes the markers of cultural identities, where act, context, event culminate in a cultural performance. That's what, a performance can be many things at once. It can be. So each performance is a unique because of the specific circumstances in which it occurs, including historical, social, economical, political, personal, etc., etc., etc. At the same time, every performance is part of the larger tradition, and the creator, performers, and audience are integrating with a given piece of larger body of tradition. Performance is consequential because it affects large much that the period of the people rising, falling, and curtain. It's not that simple. One performance, you go to a Kalki movie, see that movie, oh, wow, wow, and you come out, you are forgetting. No, it has a long lasting impact. It can make an impact. It can make you to get into certain kind of reflexive actions to think about. You try to understand the situation. You try to understand the utopian realities. You try to understand the dystopian world which you live in. You try to understand the money which you spend to while away your time. You try to criticize. You try to, work on it. You try so many things. So it's not only a reflexive act, it also reflects some part of an imaginary fantastic life, whatever it is. So performance has that possibility. Let me come into the word cultural performance. In 1915s, Milton Singer introduced the idea of cultural performance. Singer noted that cultural consultants involved in his field work on Hinduism often took him to see cultural performance when they wanted to explain a particular aspect of that culture. Then he determined that these performances, it is exactly happened in the Madras, where the Sabha performances. So the Sabha performances could be regarded as the most concrete observable units of Indian culture. That's what he understood. He concluded that one could understand the cultural value system of Hinduism by abstracting from repeated observation of these Sabha performances, which is seasonal, which is annual, which happens with a structure, which happens at many places, which is being received by a set of people with its own ritualistic grandeur, etc., etc., which also portray, which also bring in a certain kind of a generic performances of rendering, which has been trained, prepared, practiced, framed, and represented, before a set of ideas. So cultural performances then are become an ideal unit of study because they reference and encapsulate information about the culture that gave rise to them. How and from which, in what conditions of the culture this particular forms got sprung out. The cultural messages become more accessible with each sample of the performance, since the researcher can compare the specific repeated features of the same performance, because it's very easy. It's generic, it's conditional, conventional, etc., 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 etc. You can easily see that. So it was very easy way. Singer found that each cultural performance had a definitely limited time span. That is what important, or at least a beginning, middle, and end, and at least and an organized program of activity, where a set of performers, an audience, and a place and occasion of performance. The same is true for religious secular events. Cultural performances are informed by the norms of one's own community and signals one's membership in that community. So it generally connects. It of course connect the community, and these performances are markers of the community identity and the audience obligation to run this performance and audience social responsibility to make this happen. It is the ritual hereditary right of the performers to take up this particular performance. So it is that way it was, trying to do this kind of a thing. So what I'm trying to say, if you really look at the folk traditions in the pan-South Indian, you can see that certain kind of a common elements always, runs across it. It is ritual based. Most of them start with a prayer. There's a lot of scope for improvisation. It's not only the text. The text can have some kind of conventional contextual improvisation often made by comic characters like Kakalan, Konangi, Katiyan, Katiyakaran, Kutu Komali, etc., etc. And they generally improvise situations of common life and which is part of the daily life. So set of things. There are a set of lot of pre-performance rituals like breaking of the coconut to Ganpati Vandana to whatever it is. Like most of the performances as appearance of the gods on the stage. So the live presence of the god, the appearance of the god, the descending of the god, or the ascending of the god from the trance, etc., 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 makes your performance very much, very much you can relate with that. So there's the character of the Sutradhara, Vishdushaga, or the Bhagavatar, or etc., etc. There's that Sutradhara is the one which makes otherwise the episodic levels of this performance into a continuous narrative. Sutradhara, or the one who comes in and connects the performance and the narrative to grow into this thing. Most of our southern performances are a combination of music, dance, and action. Most of them are oral, less use properties, they use vernacular languages. There were a lot of gender improvisation, gender impersonation. Many of the time females were not there, female impersonations were there. Many of the time the performances gave a scope for the people to come in and go. There's no difference between the audience and the performers. Audience can get in, come in, clap, ask, laugh, and also enact. It's like we are living in a country where 44 days of Ram Leela happens in many places. So there is a use of chorus, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm trying to say, this thing. So in that, I will take an example of a Christian performance tradition of a Kerala. So it's like I don't rely on to. It's like a Christian performance tradition is a community performance, community tradition, where one can easily see how the communities care about, how community hold on to certain kind of performance traditions to make themselves visible. So I'm not going into Margankali or Parijamuttukali or Vattakali. You know that the fate of the Margankali. Margankali, which narrates the legendary episodes of the life of the Saint Thomas, was once upon a time was very much part of the Knanaya Christian communities, marriages, rites of passages, and their celebrations. But now it's been appropriated by the Syrian community, Syro Malabar Church, in many ways, and it has, from the time of an education ministry, it has transported as an item in the youth festivals and also in the cultural festivals conducted by most probably the Syrian Catholic communities. So it has a kind of a cultural change, but the particular performance of the Margam Kali were the episodes of the life of Saint Thomas. So the communities which rely upon their coming from the apostolic birth of the apostolic tradition of Saint Thomas still believe and still wanted to work on their own community's evolution status to that particular sense through that Margam Kali, Margam, the people who come into the Margam doing a Kali, a play, and that Margam Kali becomes a circular dance, and that circular dance was earlier done by males, then later it becomes female. Now it's a purely competitive items which represent the Christian minorities cultural item in the largest youth festival, etc., etc. So you know that I'm not getting into that particular performance. I'm not even getting into the Chautanadagam. That's again from the coastal belt of Kerala, where Chautanadagam is believed to be superimposed or came in as a continuum of the Morisvoic Scada or the Iberian dances, or which has from the Portuguese Padravado tradition and which has been there as a dance drama tradition, which mainly deals with the Christian saint laws and Christian biblical themes, religious themes, and the historical themes. And now it is also performed in the organized cultural festivals as part of the Latin Christian heritage. Then now, interestingly, it has gone into the youth festival scenario, and a performance which is being performed for a duration of in the Ponjikara Ravi's novel. It says that Karlsman, story of Karl Emperor Karlsman, has been performed for 14 nights in a inland water island, in an island. And it's, such kind of a play is being reduced over a period of 20 minutes of performance. So it is, I'm not dealing with that. Instead, I'll go for a quick look at a performance called Movers Nadagam. That is a Maggie play, which is called a Mood Raja Kutu. You all know that the Maggie visited Jesus Christ when he was born in the Manga. So in the Palakkad, in the Attikodu, there is a kind of a one-year Christian community lives in the Antonia Church of Attikodu, Palakkad, where every year there is an annual cyclical performance. So for them, it's a particular kind of a cultural performance. That particular community, it is because of their right. It is because of their belief. It is that cultural content of the visit of the Magi, or the three Magi, or the three kings, and the Manga constructed a particular kind of a tradition, which was a bigger tradition all over the world. Wherever there's the medieval Christianity was popular, the visitation of the Magi, it was reproduced. You might have, as a literature students, you might be remembering the T.S. Eliot's poem of the Magi, three Magi, poem. But anyway, that's so. It's for the 1 year community of Attikodu. It is an annual cyclical season. It is part of their Epiphany celebration. It is part of it's a time frame. It has been performed by a set of people, which is, they have a set of families, 36 um, 36 villages, which and the 36 villages, some kind of a set of 17 families. In that 17 families, a set of selected number of families considered to be the specialists, and they takes it their role as a hereditary role, as the first king Balthasar, second Melchior, third Caspar. These three kings being taken by Panditakaran family, another family, like that. These three families take up their role for the last 167 years, and they've been performing every year once on the day. And it's been organized as part of the Epiphany celebrations. It has been organized by the community. There is a cultural context to it. There is a set of cultural conventions which follow, which has a Terukutu kind of style, which has a Terukutu kind of costume, which has a kind of a singing and dancing, which has an interesting, elaborate kind of setup, and etc. etc. So it is like that particular performance. So it's truly a cultural performance which makes their cultural identity of being a 1 year Christian, being a migrant Christian, being a converted Christian, being a Christian with a religious fervor and faith is being reasserted, reworked. And that's what exactly they do. Let's see the three Magi. The first king is Balthasar. He prepared himself in his own house and Nedumpalayam, and he start traveling. And interestingly, here the Magi is not coming in the camel, but they come in a bullock cart, decorated bullock cart with the local materials. And interestingly, this performance starts in the early evening, like 5:30, like that. They go to the church, they do the makeup in their own family, go to their shrine church, pray, then get on to a particular kind of a bullock cart, designated for three, and the three places from in the village where the Atikodu church as the center, Antonia's church in the center there. From the three places, these people started with a procession. And as a procession, the second king come. That's the first procession. The person who is driving his cart has been driving the cart for the 70 years. that time when I was doing field work. Now he is no more, his son is driving. But second king is still continuing, not the first king. First king has given the right of performance to his own sister's son. So that's what exactly happening. The third king comes. The three magic comes in and identify that there is a star in the and at the top of the Antonia church, and they identify this is the star. The star was leading us, and they all come into the compound of the church. And there, what exactly happen is their sound, their processions, their polkas, their band, their singing, etc., etc., make a particular kind of a disturbance to the Herod, King Herod. King Herod will be sitting in his own, palace, which is in Bethlehem. That is, the palace in Bethlehem is nothing but the stage constructed in the compound of the church. That I'll come back. King Herod sent his minister. So they sent his minister and talk to these people. So there is a sequence where the minister comes and talks to these three kings and asks that King Herod is waiting for them. Why did they come? Why are they making songs, etc., etc.? King Herod comes in, and there is another procession where the minister convinces these people and take them to King Herod's court. Interestingly, King Herod is not a Christian king. He's a pagan king. He's a Hindu king. He's a Hindu believer. So interestingly, by the time the procession reach, a set of Satans comes in, where the Luciferan teams comes in, and they what would they do? They tempt King Herod, and they say that don't believe in Maggie. They are all they're trying to cheat you, etc., etc. He will say, and it's that way. There is an interesting sequence, which and the Satans are very Pays are very interesting comic characters. They come and disturb the audience, etc., etc. It's a very interesting, playful scenario which is happening. After that, there will be larger section in the King Herod's court where the Magi try to convince King Herod that there's a newborn savior is born, etc., etc. Then more Magi try to convince King Herod that whatever he believes as part of the Hindu belief system is wrong, and it's all foolishness, it's all irrational, it's all of no faith, etc., etc. So it's like a interesting way the proselytization, Christian proselytization happens in these kinds of scenes. But King Herod initially never believes them, but King Herod later believes, because King Herod initially calls the soothsayers or the religious people or the Jyotishi of his own court to cross check what these fellows are telling is true, what this three Magi is telling is true. And there is a sequence of the Magi talking to the particular soothsayers, and Maggie make fun of them, and Maggie makes sure that the soothsayers are people who really literally cheats the King Herod and the people, and the believers of the Hinduism. So in a way, they try to win over the the belief system of the Hindus. And then upon Maggie's suggestion, King Herod brings the parish priest. Interestingly, where priest comes in, and the priest takes the Bible and reads out the biblical portion of the birth of Jesus Christ, and the Matthias, Gospel of Matthew. So it is that sequence happens. It's a Tevaram sequence. It's a long prayer sequence. The Magi kneels. The Magi carries the three kings' idols, which has been kept in the church. Then there's processions with the idol. Then they go to the church. By the time the Magi prostrate, by the time the Magi gets into the trance, etc., etc., then they come out with a teru, a bigger procession around the church. And by the next day, early morning, the procession ends up with a particular kind of holy mass inside the church, where the Magi attend that mass. So and the devotees attend the mass. So it's like a performance we started in the evening, and so the next day early mass goes through different dimensions of text and commemoration and the people's belief, etc., is an interesting cultural performance where it is a core part of the community's cultural identity. You can see that where the performance text, which has been constructed, realized, and actualized in that particular performance of Muvarasa Nadagam or Moodraja Kutu, because of where the performers and audience meet them. The performers and audience, very interestingly, audience can get in any time. Audience can take blessings from the Maggie. Audience go with the water and wash their legs. Audience go and take the candles lit from the Maggie's hand. Audience are part of the procession. Audience are part of the procession from the beginning to the different sets of processions. Audience play with the pace, etc., etc. So the audience also highly participate. So one can easily say these ritual practices of the community to celebrate this particular kind of Muvarsunadagam once in a year as part of their Epiphany celebration openly or elaborately, explicitly brings in their religious ideology. It is the social obligation of the audience to conduct this. They share, they make money, they put in money, they make the offerings, they make it is their social obligation to conduct this particular thing. And it is the ritual practice of the hereditary right of the performers to satisfy the social obligation. It's also a social obligation by the performers who has the hereditary right. It is also their ritual practice. It is also the audience ritual practice to come in, see this performance, even though they got migrated, because the agricultural one-year community lost Kurinyambara, became a kind of an industrial township, and they lost their agricultural land, and a lot of them migrated into different parts of Coimbatore and Palakkad in search of their own new professions, and the professions and occupations also change, but they still come back. The families still come back for this particular performance. So this is a particular kind of a religious event. This cultural performance becomes a marker for this particular religious event where this particular community reasserts their identity, cultural identity, their religious identity, their religious belief. They proclaim, and that's what they exactly do. So this is what is the interesting aspect. So each and every performances, through each and every performances over a period of time, they rework on establishing and re-establishing and renewing their own cultural identity. So that's what exactly happening. That is why this particular genre, that's why this particular event, cultural event, that is why even though the event has a religious fervor, it still continue intact and continue and survive. So this is what exactly I wanted to say in this particular thing. I think I have taken more time. I will be interested to interact with you so that I can explain some more things.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Really an enlightening session.
Okay.
So even if any of you have some query, just ask yourself, or just you can just put in the chat box as well. Anyone who want to speak, not query, but want to speak with our resource person, if you have any. Okay, sir, Lakshmi Priya uh, has two questions for you.
Yeah.
Lakshmi Priya, would you please speak with sir? That would be better, I think.
That's okay. I didn't see that. Where is it?
Okay. So,
So she can speak, or you
sir,
can read it
let
out.
yeah, I can, but just let me do it. Yeah, sir, now you can see the chat box. I'm reading it out. Could you please name some novels that has references of Chavitina,
Nadagam.
Chavitinadakam? Yeah.
Oh, there's in that some of the novels, like there are some films, like uh, there's a film first, like one film by Mohanlal, which brings in, I think I'm not remember Shankar or whatever it is. There's a dance sequence where the Chauta Nadagam is being used. Then this Chautanadagam has been very much used in the Puthussery film by Shaji and Karun, where one of the character of Mohanlal, no, not Mammootty, is a Chautanadagam artist, and Kuttisrang used that particular thing. And the same writers uh, later um, text brings in Chautanadagam. But I was referring to one particular text which is being um, done by um, text. Punjagara Rafi, Sabina Rafi's husband, Punjagara Rafi, builds text. Sorgadudan, and that Chautanadam has been rough. There are quite a lot of studies I've done nowadays with regards to Chautanadam. These are some of the texts which has a distinct reference to Chautanadagam. Otherwise, Chautanadagam is been part of the popular text. Not exactly remembering now. I don't know. Maybe Chautanadagam character might be there here and there. Um, the text I'm not very. There are some very few texts, but nowadays it is doing after the flood. K.R. Sunil is trying to make kind of a choreographed pictures, working on the disparity, the cultural condition, and making the Chautanadagam artists to clad in the Chautanadagam costumes and choreographing them, placing them, and making the pictures and making it as an exhibition. That's what happened in the Binale, in Cochin exhibition. It's been covered. So it's there. Chautanadagam's distance reference is there. Chautanadagam's song is there. Kutisaranga has a couple of interesting songs. And this, that is there.
Okay, sir. Thank you. The next question from her is, can we say that when compared to Muvarasu Nattakam, Chodanattakam has lost its cultural identity?
Yeah, there is the cultural identity means here there it's like a Chaudanadagam cut across the communities. It's not exactly that. It lost its context. Context of drastically changed. So Chaudanadagam, one can say that it's in the periphery because it's just like generated a kind of a genre. It became a genre. The performance text of the Chautanadagam is depending upon the performer, the text, pattern. So the patron is interested only to have the maintenance of that particular genre. So the performers are interested in only keeping a little bit of conventions of Chautanadagam. So there is like many of the thematic intrusions also happen. So in a way, Chautanadagam, what happens? The genre continued and it is also invented, but it drastically got edited because of the narrative time and the performance train drastically got dropped. So it has got into more than the conventions, it has got into certain kinds of rules and conducive and conveniences where how many performers are there, how much of time we have, how much of duration we have. So what exactly you wanted to show in this smaller amount of time are you going to show? So it's something like you are trying to showcase a piece of something which is there. So it is neither invented, it is nor emergent. So it's not never emerged out of it. It shows a little bit of a little bit of traditions back, yeah, traditions in the backdrop, but it is not exactly that kind of what do you call? invented. So interestingly, what I can say is, if you really look at uh, kind of an hybridization, you can say that this particular hybrid self of the Chautanadagam, which is evolved because of the themes got superimposed by the Western missionaries as part of the proselytization, wedged with the cultural expression of the form, which is very much South Indian, especially mostly the Telugu-based form in the form of the expression. It were always contesting each other. So it was not a mellifluous blending; it was a inorganic blending. So the Creole, which is cultural Creole, which has been generated out of this inorganic hybridity, you know, that always have this contesting thing. So it was very easy for the Chautanadagam people also to, break it, segment it, manipulate it, improvise it, conducively, conveniently, as, with the changing tastes of the aesthetics, with the changing time span, they can, manipulate it. So that is what exactly happened. So otherwise, in the other case, the Muvarashanadagam sustained its duration, sustained its ritualistic nature, sustained its organicity because of the religious ritual practice, hereditary rites, because of the sanctity associated with the text, because of the functional uh, focus on reconfirming their thing. So they continued it. So it is not an invented tradition. It is, even though it is emergent out of the earlier baggages of traditions, but it is still continued as a organic hybrid with a core practice. That's what exactly happened.
Thank you, sir.
Nothing wrong in it.
Yeah, I hope.
Always the traditions can get invented, emergent, redundant, reworked. Chautanadagam has gone through that kind of a thing. It got revived, revivalism changed its logic of construction, then reformed, then reworked, then recreated. It's something like it has gone through the major, traits of time.
So that means there is a circle like this.
Yeah, you can say it's a circle. But you can the creoles are not circle. Nah. You can easily identify the
Yeah.
cultural components, these, but it's still there. It has its dynamism. It also has its, continuous contest, and the Creole always have contradicting contexts, conflicting context and segmentation. So that happens.
True. True, sir. So Lakshmi Priya, I hope you got your answer. Now the next one is from Rupam Chakraborty. Apart
Mhm.
from the religious performance, do you think foods, clothing, and cross-dressing can shape our cultural identity?
Yeah, everything food as a performance. If you frame it as a performance, you can study it as a performance. It is a part of the performing culture. The food has multiple dimensions. If you think in terms of a performance specs, you're sourcing things, you're making it, you're processing it, you're consuming it, and you are defecating it, or whatever. It has a beginning, middle, and end. So it is, if you frame it, you can see it as a particular kind of a continuous correspondence growth in the making process. It's very dynamic. It deals with it deals with the procedures. It deals with the appreciations. It deals with the activities. It deals with the relationship. It deals with the materiality. It deals with the constructing taste. It deals with so many things. So it's an enactment. It can be framed and studied as a performance, you know. But when it gets mediated, so it also carries the cultural connotations. Food also carry cultural connotations. So you, being a Bengali, you take it up a particular kind of a ritual food. of a particular Bengali community in a particular day and time. So what will happen? It's a ritualistic food made in that occasion with its own preparation. It carry what? It carry a sense of collective memory of cooking that food. It carry and it makes you to have certain kind of contextual cultural memories of being part of that performance making cooking event. It also brings in certain kind of ideas of a performative knowledge which is being shared, known, repeated, reproduced by you with your. So what are you doing? You have a focus, you have a efficacy, you have an effect, you have thinking that this ritual food making as part is in a way I wanted to show my own cultural identity in making that ritual food, you know. So that brings in your own family to commemorate their own collective memories of sharing, tasting, you know, interestingly eating that particular food. You know, it brings in religion, it brings in families, it brings in the sharings, it brings in the memories of your own grandfather, grandmother, who were part of making this food in a different way. But the content, function, the way, the process, everything is so much conventional. And, you know, so you may force your own next generation to come and eat, at least taste. That's what happens.
Yes, sir. Actually, that happens, I think, with all of us. Okay, so I think many of them have their queries, but
Left.
not asking. But
Many of them are left also, I
maybe,
think. I don't know.
yeah, sir,
It's so much
maybe
boring.
because in at my place also there is raining and thunderstorm. Because of that
Oh,
also
okay, okay.
it can be.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and fine. That's fine. So, thank you so much. So there's a uh, thank you so much. Thank you all for I'm not seeing. Yeah, I see some of my students, so that's also fine. So thank you. It's uh,
Hello,
it's a pleasure, Koyal. You have facilitated it well, and you have
hello,
given
sir.
me a chance to. Hello.
Uh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Farhana.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah. So I have a question. So I was
Yeah.
thinking, so can one performance be like a sort of a, can there be two performances at play in which like one performance is sort of, challenging the other? And what sort of like, forces or like what kind of things are at play when that sort of happens? I don't know if you got my question.
Yeah, one performance challenge the other performance
Yeah.
is what you say, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So it is something like it's a contesting, it's a contest. You mean to say it's a contest?
Yeah, it's a contest between two,
Huh.
similar performances on the same plane, but they are like, like they
So
have different
you have to look at that
ideas.
function, that performance. You know, you have to look at that performance as not complementary but contrasting.
Yeah,
You know,
contrast. Yeah.
all these performances, be it a behavioral pattern, or be it a cultural performance for entertainment, or be it a ritual performance for propagation, be it an offering performance, whatever it is, it has a very interesting functionality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every performance has a function. So many of the times, interestingly, one can see this. Some performances as it is it is basically for entertainment, but that entertainment makes us to explore the expressions of the people, isn't it? It
Mm-hmm.
also makes us the audience as well as the performer to explore various expressions for entertaining. But that also elucidate certain kinds of skills and capacities of the performer as well as the audience, isn't it?
Yeah.
that also educate the performer as well as the audience that this performer has more skills, these performers has more capacity, these performer, like suppose in the jatra there is a chappal rani is a transfer star, is a man performing a girl, and most of the time in his own time there's that particular lady's name I forgot. Okay, the most of the time Chapal Rani, the women used to be very much jealous about the man, that particular man who is performing. So it is for them also it's an education. Them also it's a jealous generating action. So it's a part of an education. That also indirectly empower them to look at how a man observing, conceiving, and representing a woman with, quotes and quotes. No, so it is
Right.
also in a way we can empower. So in some other way, I'm just reversing it. Some performances are there to empower a set of people, a political protest. It's a protest
Mhm.
performance. It is to empower a community. It is to empower a set of people. You will see, being in Kerala, you can see every day some protest performance, isn't it? So it is to demand, it is to persuade, it is to act, it is to do. But that protest performance, as an outsider, educate you, that elucidate and explain certain kinds of social situations. That particular performance makes you to reflect upon the realities, isn't it? That performance mirror their social condition for them, but as a viewer, as an audience, as a participant, or as somebody, that performance gives you a possibility to reflect upon what is the condition? Reflects upon your own ideological strength, your own. What is it? It is an act of self-revelation. So it is that way. It is also entertaining. So it is these two ways you can see this. I used only E. So from one E to the other, from the entertainment to empowerment, from the empowerment to entertainment, both this can happen. This is what I think. I don't know. I could not actually get you. If you are trying to say two people are con in a contest, like in a simulated what do you boxing, that's also entertaining. That's also skill making. That's also success. It's also based on who win and lose, winners and losers, etc., etc. That's a different kinds of performances. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope, Farana, you got your answer from sir.
I
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
know.
Yeah.
I didn't
Thank you,
get the
sir, for
questions
explaining
properly.
it. Yeah.
But sir, you did well, I mean. And sir, actually, Babina, I want to say that please don't ask such question here. It is a lecture based on cultural performance. So will you please contact with the university website? Okay. Thank you.
What happened?
Actually, so she is telling that how to get PhD in CS at
Oh, okay,
University of
okay.
Hyderabad.
It's okay. You
That's
can
why
have, we
I
don't have
just
we don't have sorry to say, I will tell you one thing. We don't have a seat vacant this year. The seat comes in only next academic year. Sorry, I'm very sorry to say we have very less number of people, but you can always mail me, no problem. Or ask Coil,
thanks
she
to
can
you, sir.
facilitate. She can give my mail
Yeah,
ID.
you can contact with me. I can give you sir email ID.
Yeah,
And
no
sir,
problem.
one thing I want your consent in this, that
Hmm.
many are asking for the PPT. Can I share it in our
Oh,
group?
absolutely, no problem. But that PPT has so many things. It has some cut and paste, it has something. Many of things I have taken from my own mentor, Professor Sudhakar Reddy. It has so many. You can share it, no problem. There is nothing to.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
But
So
the PPT
now
has
that,
the PPT is so large. I have used, I think Coil knows it. I used less.
yeah,
I started
and that is
somewhere.
the PPT is interesting as well. The pictures in it and all the
There's
thing.
nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in sharing it.
Okay. So, sir, before ending, here is a formal vote of thanks from
Yeah,
our team.
yeah.
So, once again, good evening, everyone. And sir, it is with immense pleasure and gratitude that I speak before you today to express our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Joly Puthussery, His insightful lecture on constructing culture identity through performance has left us enriched and inspired. His expertise in cultural theory, ethnography, and folklore studies has illuminated the intricate ways in which performance shapes our understanding of identity. As we reflect on his word, let us recognize the importance of preserving and celebrating our diverse performance traditions. Dr. Puthussery's scholarship encourages us to engage critically with these art forms, fostering a deeper connection to our roots and heritage. On behalf of Cultural Studies Research Forum, I extend our sincere gratitude to Dr. Joly Puthussery for gracing our event with his wisdom. We are honored to have had him as our guest speaker, and we look forward to continued collaboration and exploration in the realm of cultural studies. Thank you, sir, once again. Now,
Thank
I
you.
would like to thank with all sincerity Dr. Kallani Bharat ma'am for being a truly supportive person for all our ventures. And I would also like to express my thanks to all the attendees who contributed to the success of this event. And stay tuned for our next captivating session on performance studies on 6th July at 6 p.m. by Dr. C.S. Biju sir, Principal of Sacred Heart College, Thevera. Until we meet again, continue to explore and learn with Bharat. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Sir, will you please? Okay. Thank you, everyone.